I was about to climb the highest mountain that I've ever climbed before in my life, and that mountain was my recovery from open heart surgery. You see, I had some healing to do. My heart had to heal from the surgical repair, my breastbone had to heal from being sawed wide open, and I also had to heal emotionally as well as mentally. And thank God I have loving friends and loving family who were there to help me through this, as well as critical illness insurance, which helped me get through this financially. I didn't have to worry about my finances whatsoever. In this episode, I'm going to talk about my healing journey, starting off with my time in the hospital and as well as my time at home. My name is Jim Leo. You're listening to the Tortoise and the Hare Financial Podcast. And first, a word from my sponsor. In my last episode, I took you through the day of my surgery, the roller coaster ride that I went through in getting out of the surgery and ICU as well. And we started off with me getting admitted the night before, and I left it off where I was out of the ICU. And I was expected to be in the ICU for about 24 hours. And the good news was that 16 hours in, they saw that I was doing really well, and I was able to go back to my room. So now we're going to talk about my recovery while at the hospital, as well as throughout the year, and some of the challenges that I faced with that. You have to understand, there was recovering from the surgical procedure, so my heart had to recover from that. My body had to recover from my breastbone getting sawed open, so they can get to my heart. But there's also an emotional recovery as well as a mental recovery. And in some ways, I'm still recovering emotionally. Mentally, I'm good. Physically, I'm good. But a year later, there's still some emotional challenges that you kind of creep up from time to time, which I'll get into as well with you. Now, in dealing with recoveries, again, I've had multiple surgeries in the past, the hip replacement being the other big one. I knew that the day after the surgery, I would still feel okay. I'd probably be sleeping most of the time. Your body is really exhausted; it's tired. You're still, being pumped with medicine as well. Really, where the challenge becomes is on day 2 after the surgery. That's where you feel like you were hit by a Mack truck. So for me, surgery was Wednesday. I knew mentally that Friday was going to be that day. Now, the bad news is that's the worst that you're ever going to feel. The good news is that once you get past midnight, you hope to start noticing some small little improvements. So that is rock bottom, really, physically speaking. And sure enough, Friday came along, and that was a very difficult day for me. I'd asked Carol to hold off until the weekend to have the kids come down to visit me for the first time since I went to the hospital, because again, one day I'd be sleeping, the next day I would just not. I'd be a total write off. So we waited until the weekend for that to happen. But Friday was tough, and one of the things in recovery that they do encourage you to do is to try to do a little bit of walking. And one of the things that they wanted me to do was to sit up for at least 10 minutes in the chair next to my bed and to have lunch in that chair. Easy, right? I mean, it's something that we take for granted. You just get up out of bed. We do it every single morning. We get up, we stand up, and we walk to wherever. When you're recovering from a surgery like this, it's not easy. I needed 2 people every single time just to sit up. I needed the help of 2 people to get me to stand up and then to literally move me a foot away from my bed to my chair to sit down, and then to get up from the chair back into the bed again. I needed the help of 2 people. One of the reasons for that too is your breastbone is healing, and again, it's being held together by titanium string, and you're not allowed to use your arms. Now, I wasn't allowed to use my arms for at least to push anything more than 15 pounds per arm for 6 months. The normal recovery is about 8 weeks. Like normally, after 8 weeks, you can start using your arms normally again. For me, they extended that to 6 months, so that took me into November before I was able to go back into normal activity again. And the reason for that is with the breastbone, if it doesn't fuse aligned with the breastbone properly, then what they would have to do is they'd have to go in and break the breastbone and then put it back together again with metal plates and screws. And I didn't want that to happen. And the doctors didn't want that to happen. So that's why they extended my recovery with the usage of my arms. And it's amazing when you look at things, that are 15 pounds per arm. There's a lot of things that you don't realize that are about 30 pounds or more, and you just can't lift them. So that was a bit of a challenge for me. Now, again, in saying all that, they had a plan for me. So normally every morning they'd come in, the nurses or the physiotherapist, and they'd say, okay, well, today we would like you to, do 2 walks. Tomorrow maybe you might want to do 3 walks. And that's what, that was my plan for the day while I was recovering from the hospital. Now, many of the times, all I would really have to do is just buzz the nurse's station, let them know I'm ready for the walk. They would, again, bring somebody over to get me out of bed. And I got to the point where I was able to walk on my own, which was great. I didn't need to have anybody with me, but I did see my nurses kind of in the, from afar, looking at me to make sure that I was fine. And every single time that I would get out of my room, I would look, and visually see that's where I want to get to today. So even if I could do 5 more steps or 1 more minute, as long as I improved every single time, that's what I was looking to do. And when I was recovering in my room at one point, one of the nurses, Paula, who was the best nurse that I've ever had, a wonderful individual. Actually, all the nurses were fantastic. They took fantastic care of me, and I was really blessed to have them all. But she was, just a little bit more special than everybody else. And she had said to me, she said, normally, Jim, we have to, push people to get out of bed to go for walks. We have to drag them out of bed. But for you, we've never had to ask you once. You're the one coming to us saying you're ready to go. What's your motivation? And I shared with her, my motivation was my wife, Carol, and shared with her the story where when Carol and I had Serena, and Serena was about a month old, so we were both first-time parents. I had to rush Carol to the nearest hospital because she was dealing with some severe stomach pain, and she looked like she was 9 months pregnant again because of her belly was so distended. And what had happened was Carol was dealing with an obstruction due to her intestine twisting. And in 3 days, she had 2 major surgeries on her bowels, almost died twice in the 3 days on me. And then she was out of commission for about 3 months, back at home, obviously, but she wasn't allowed to lift more than 5 pounds, and Serena was more than 5 pounds. And, for about 2 years after that, Carol, on average, was hospitalized every 6 weeks with some form of bowel obstruction. And at that point, we would take her down to Mount Sinai. So I would pack up Serena, it didn't matter what time it was, drive all the way down Mount Sinai. Carol would be admitted. Her shortest stay was 24 hours. Her longest was 6 weeks because she had an ostomy pouch that needed to be reversed. But a lot of times she'd be in there for about a week waiting for the bowel obstruction to hopefully resolve itself, which thank God most of the time it did. And I remember there were many times where I would be down with Serena. Now at this point in time, Serena would have been maybe 12, 13 months old. And we would get to Carol's room. Carol wouldn't be in her room. Then we'd find her in the hallways walking. And every single time I can see she was fighting to keep taking a step, but she was determined, man. She would fight and fight and fight. And she was determined. And a lot of times I'd say to her, "Let's go back to your room so you can rest." And she'd always say, "No, I want another either half lap or another full lap," because she knew that with every step that she took, she was one step closer to coming back home to be with Serena and I. And never in a million years did I think that I would ever be able to repay that. But here I was in a situation where I can now repay that. And I knew that with every single step that I took, I was one step closer to being back at home with my wife and my 2 kids who I adore and love with all my heart. And that's the reason why. And of course, the other reason why too was Serena was going to graduate in about 4 weeks, and I wanted to make sure that I was strong enough to be there not only at her graduation to see her graduate, but I also wanted to be there to hold her and have that first dance with my daughter. So that was another factor that was pushing me through all this. I was blessed again to have my family come and visit on the weekends as well, and it was nice. At one point, they would laugh and say how they knew that I was back, and what they meant by that was my sense of humor. Once my sense of humor was back, and I made them laugh, I think it gave them some comfort knowing that okay, he's on the road to recovery. So yeah, I was in the hospital, admitted Tuesday evening. The following Monday at 11 o'clock, I was going home. They wanted to send me home on the Sunday, but I had asked if they could delay it by one more day. There was a level of comfort being in the hospital, knowing that I had heart rate monitors on me, and that information was being sent to the nurses station. So if at any point in time I did have a heart attack or a stroke, that I'd be surrounded by the best of the best, and that was my best chance at maybe coming out of that situation. Thankfully, never had to deal with a heart attack or stroke, but just having that level of comfort was very helpful. So now it's Monday. Didn't really rest well. Hospitals are the worst place to rest, to be honest with you, because you got machines going off all hours of the day. Nurses are poking and prodding in the middle of the night while you are trying to sleep. That's when the janitors normally come around and start cleaning the rooms and emptying garbage. Sometimes you might have a neighbor who's suffering in the middle of the night and screaming out in pain as well. So by Monday, I was ready to get back at home, and it was a long drive. Again, St. Mike's Hospital is about 100 kilometers from my home. Carol was there. My brother was there to help me get me back home, and it was a sweet drive. It was such a sweet drive, just knowing that I was leaving. And the other thing I should mention is the first time that I ever left St. Mike's Hospital was when my parents were taking me home because that's where I was born. And I know when I went in to get admitted, I'd said to my brother, Mike, my life's not ending here. I was born here. It's not ending here. And it didn't, thank God. So made it home. And it was so good to be home, I got to tell you. Um, just, just the comfort of your home, to be able to sit in my chair, to look at my window outside. I love my property. I love my home. I love seeing my wife and my kids, and they were happy to see me at home. But I have to say, it was a bit scary because I still was at risk, and I live in a rural area, and knowing that there was a bit of a distance to the hospital was a little bit unnerving at times. But you know, you have to deal with that. That's the mental aspect as well, and that's the emotional aspect. One of the things that they did warn me of when I was at the hospital, that I would probably be very emotional for at least about a year. And what they meant by that was that I could be just feeling fine, and I could see something on TV that would trigger emotions, and I can just start crying for no reason. And I thought, oh no, I think I'll be okay. And they were right. I would watch shows or movies, and it'd be something that normally wouldn't necessarily cause any type of emotion from me, but I would just start to cry, and sometimes cry like a little baby, and I couldn't control it. You're laying there most of the time thinking about what just happened. Now, mentally, logically, I know that I was very fortunate and very lucky that we uncovered the problem when we did, because I also knew that if we didn't uncover that situation, and hadn't I pushed my doctor, that I wouldn't be on this earth a few months after that. But it never really sunk in. Again, I understand it, but it never really hit or sunk in. And I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why. I do know that, when I talk about I'm still dealing with the recovery from an emotional perspective, when I see a show on TV and it's someone's life was saved or something to do with a father and a son, where the son says, or where the father says he's proud of his son, or because again, I didn't have a very good relationship with my dad, I still get really choked up. And I definitely think that, my thought process has changed ever since that surgery. Um, I hug my loved ones a little bit tighter. I hug them a little bit longer now because you never know, you just never know. Now, part of my recovery was I had to walk. And I remember the first day that I needed to start my recovery. I needed to do 4 5-minute walks. And I didn't even know when I did the first one, and Carol would come with me because, again, I was still at risk of something happening. I didn't know how I was going to make. I barely could make it through 3 minutes, and I would push myself to about that 5-minute mark, and I'd get back home, and I would conk out for like 2 hours. Um, Again, body's recovering, right? It's battling, and I just knew that if the next day I can do the 6, and the next day after that I can do 7, it was just it meant that I was on the road to recovery. So most of my summer was spent laying on a couch trying to find something to watch on Netflix. I wasn't allowed to do any of the things that I enjoyed doing. One of them being motorcycle or riding my motorcycle. I wasn't allowed to drive. There was just a lot of things I couldn't do that again, we take for granted. So I was looking forward to my 7-week follow up with the cardiac surgeon, Dr. Verma. Now, in my mind, again, when I would always be asked how you feeling and how you doing, and I'd always respond with, "Well, I'm alive and glad to be alive." And I was looking for that marker of when I can finally feel like this is behind me. So I thought, well, maybe when I have the follow up, and that didn't do it for me. Again, I think I met Dr. Verma for about 20 minutes, and during that meeting, he had said to both Carol and I that for at least the next 12 months, there was still about a 36% chance that I would have either a heart attack or a stroke. And I didn't read that anywhere else before. That was the first that I heard of it. And that was pretty scary knowing that that was still a possibility. You almost feel like you're a ticking time bomb. And I will say that for a few months, every morning when I open up my eyes, I was thankful that, okay, I'm still alive. I'm still alive today. That's what I would say to myself, actually. I would open up my eyes and say, thank God I'm still alive today. And, struggle to get out of bed. And I was lucky, actually, because with it, before me even knowing that I needed this surgery, Carol and I had bought lifestyle beds. Basically, they're hospital beds, right? They're adjustable. And part of the reason why we did that was, I did have some other surgeries, and laying on a flat mattress can be challenging, and getting out of a flat mattress can be challenging. I thought, well, you never know. I might need another hip replacement, or I know at some point I'm going to need knee replacements. So let's invest in one of these beds, not knowing that 2 months after that, I'd actually be using it to recover from open heart surgery. But thank God I had it, because it made it easier to get in and out of bed for me. But every morning, that's what I would say to myself: thank God I'm alive today. And my routine was the same. I would, struggle to get to the couch, and then I would just sit on the couch and try to do my walks, and on and on and on. So after we did the 7-week follow up, the next appointment was with my cardiologist, and that was in August. And actually, no, that was in late July, early August, and he was happy to see me. He's like, "You're looking great," and I'm like, "Thanks. I don't feel great," and he was saying, "No," he goes, "Normally, people who have the surgery that you have really look horrible for a period of time. He said, you don't even look like you had surgery. Like, you look fantastic. And he's like, and normally for younger people who have this surgery, their recovery is a lot worse than someone who might be older. And he didn't know why. He said it had to do with maybe nerve endings being a little bit different, for someone who's older than younger. But he was happy to see me and looking great. And I felt wonderful, to be honest with you. And I was also driving at that point in time. So, about 6 or 7 weeks after my surgery, I was able to get behind the wheel and drive. And that felt so good. And, both my cardiologist and my cardiac surgeon had said that they wanted me off of work for 4 months. And again, my arm lifting restriction was on for 6 months, and I had to follow. And I did follow all the rules, to be honest with you. Now, not working for 4 months, that was a bit of a challenge. And the reason why they didn't want me to work, even if I could do it from home, was stress. They said stress could trigger a heart attack. And in my line of work, I own a business, first of all, which can be stressful in its own. We were dealing with some other issues. Carol was dealing with some other medical issues that she tried to keep from me because she didn't want me to get stressed. My other assistant was dealing with some personal issues as well. It was very difficult. And, there was also an investment that I had recommended to a lot of my clients, where the investment company was now under investigation for financial crimes. And there were people who were losing all their money. There were people who lost some of their money. There were some people who broke even. And it was a situation that I just could not get involved with while I was recovering, because even prior to the surgery, I had lost a lot of sleep. I care about the investments that I make for my clients. I treat their money as my own. And knowing that this unforeseen situation was happening, it was very difficult for me to deal with. And I had to figure out a way to just turn that off while I was recovering, because I knew that if I didn't turn it off, that I potentially would have a heart attack and I'd be gone. And my wife and kids wouldn't have me around anymore. So try to deal with that. Being outside, I'll be honest with you, if it was more than 25 degrees Celsius, being outside for more than 30 minutes was a struggle. I just couldn't do it. Being surrounded by a crowd of people, specifically people who are loud, that was also very draining. And this is actually stuff in the paperwork too. So this isn't something that I'm making up. These were the kind of things that I was warned about, and I would look at it, go, "No, I don't believe that." And then I'd experience it myself, and I go, "Okay, they were right. I was wrong, obviously." Um, so yeah, I went to my mother's birthday party. They delayed it by a month just so I can be there, and that was hard. My brother, I believe, had a birthday party in August that I went to, and that was difficult because there was a bigger crowd and a very loud crowd, and I just couldn't handle it. So it was challenging, and I just kept going on. And then finally in September, I was able to start going back to the office slowly but surely, just to kind of build my stamina. And I would hit all these milestones, but I still never felt like this situation was behind me. Now, I didn't know when that was going to happen. I thought with every milestone that it would. One of the things I should mention, while it's on my mind right now, one of the reasons why I didn't have to deal with a lot of stress and was fairly calm, because people were asking, financial, like, how are you handling this financially? And I had critical illness insurance. And for those of you who don't know what critical illness insurance is, it's an insurance where if you are diagnosed with one of, some contracts are 23, 24, 25 illnesses, but 85% of the claims are really based on one of the three, which is heart attack, cancer, stroke. So if you have one of these illnesses and you survive 30 days, there's a lump sum tax-free payout. I had gotten a policy on myself back in, I think it was 2008, 2009. It's a product that I've sold for over 20 years. I got it because I had a young family. I'm self-employed. I thought, you just never know because of my family history. And I ended up being my very first claim on a critical illness policy. I've never claimed on another policy before that I've sold. I was my first patient or my first client claim. And knowing that this lump sum of money was going to be coming in to be able to get me through this time frame where I wasn't going to be able to work or run my business, I have to say that that took a lot of pressure off of me. I wasn't worried about finances when I was sleeping. I wasn't worried about any of those things, about how I was going to pay my bills. Really, all I worried about and all I was able to focus on was to recover, to do everything that I needed to do to get through, so I could be as strong as I possibly could. So I was very thankful that I had, you know, taken my own recommendation that I've given to other clients throughout the years and had bought that coverage. Now, at this point, I was going through cardio physiotherapy every Monday, and that basically entailed that I would go to this location nearby and sit down with a physiotherapist. She'd ask me how did my week go. She'd give me instruction on the level of activity I needed for the following week. There would be a little educational piece, and then you would walk for about 30 minutes. And I remember the first day I got there, there's about 20 of us. I was the only one in my 40s. There was someone maybe in their 50s there, another person in their 60s, and everybody else in their 70s. And I'm thinking, this will be easy. I've been walking 30 minutes at home. Shouldn't be a problem. Walk in the park. Well, a lot of these older people were lapping me, and it was very discouraging the first time around. But near the end of it, I definitely got much better. And actually, near the end of it, I didn't have to do the walks there anymore because I was able to do my own exercising at home, and I was able to send the activities directly to my physiotherapist. So I went through, all the holidays, everything. Try to do a little bit of travel when during my recovery. Um, and nothing made me feel like this situation was finally behind me until May the 22nd of 2020. Literally the day that I celebrated my 1 year anniversary from the surgery, that's where I finally felt like, okay, this is it. This is now behind me. And this podcast, just talking about this, has actually been very therapeutic for me, to be honest with you. There are things that I've forgotten about that have come back to light again, and it's been very, very helpful. And just so you know, in case you're wondering, yes, I was able to attend my beautiful daughter's graduation, and yes, I did dance with her, and I took pictures, where my wife took pictures of us dancing. I was able to reach that goal, and it was the best feeling in the world to be able to dance with my daughter. I found out actually a few weeks after all that had happened. Carol said, I got to tell you something. I said, what's that, hon? And she said, well, that first dance was actually canceled by the school. I said, well, what are you talking about? I ended up dancing with Serena. She's like, well, they were canceling it because there were some students who didn't have a parent to dance with. So Carol had actually emailed the committee and said, listen, my husband's recovering from open heart surgery. The one thing that's getting him through all this is to be able to dance with our daughter. Can you please, rethink or change your decision? And sure enough, it went to vote, and they came back and they said that they were going to allow this dance, which it took place. And they just changed it instead of, parent child dance. I think it was like a child and, hero dance or something like that. I forget what it was. And they ended up allowing the dance to happen this year, or the year that I was recovering, just so I could dance with my daughter. Because, again, that was something that I said I would do before I went into surgery, and it was something that I kept telling her every day while I was recovering. I'm fighting to get back so I can dance with you. So I think I'm gonna stop it there. I can't think of anything else to really talk about. My next episode, I'll probably just kind of share with you my final thoughts on the whole situation. And again, if you're someone who's about to go into some major surgery or is recovering from surgery and you're struggling and you just want to speak with somebody about it, let me know. Reach out to me, jim@tvhgroup.ca. You can call me at 647-727-4668. If you're someone who would like to know a little bit more about the critical illness insurance, if you think it might be helpful to you, again, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help you. My name is Jim Leo. You've listened to the Tortoise and the Hare Financial Podcast. Have yourselves a wonderful and blessed day. Take care. Thanks again for listening to my podcast where I've talked about my open heart surgery and my recovery from that. One of the things that I touched on was critical illness insurance. It's something that I have offered for many, many years. I did get some for myself back in 2008, never thinking I would ever need to claim on it. And I was very thankful that I had it because I didn't have to worry about my finances. I didn't have to worry about paying my bills. Literally, I was able to go to bed every single night, and I didn't have to deal with that added level of stress. I knew that the money was there. It was coming in from the insurance policy, and I would be able to pay my mortgage and all of my bills and continue on feeding my family. So if you're someone that would like to find out more about critical illness insurance, let me know. I've recently added an associate, Jeff Wright, who's a specialist in living benefits coverage, like disability, long-term care, and critical illness, and I'd be more than happy to connect you with him. So once again, you can reach out to me at 647-727-4668 or at jim@tvhgroup.ca. Take care.